Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the TCMMA podcast with your host, Chris Cross.
Whoa!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege. Privilege.
What's happening? This is your boy Chris Cross. I hope you're enjoying the week off. This is the TCMMA podcast. Week off of the UFC. No fights this Saturday night. What in the world are we going to do with ourselves? We got to spend time with the family. We got to do all these type of things. No UFC this Saturday night. So take a deep breath. Spend time with the family. Chill out. Because very quickly, UFC on Saturday nights will be back. In fact, you got 2 fight nights. And then UFC 304 on July 27th. So that's what July looks like. We got Doug Rose going to be fighting. Looking forward to that. Some big fights this month. Not a great month, but, not a terrible month. Just seems like a letdown after all the letdowns we had in June. It's like we're rolling into a rough July, but at least we get the welterweight title, right? Once one of the premier divisions, it kind of seems like it's hollowed out a little bit. I mean, you still got Colby in there. You got Bilal Muhammad, Leon Edwards, Usman still there somewhere, although we haven't seen him fight in the welterweight division for a while. So these are the fights we got to look forward to. In July is the welterweight title. You got others like Bobby Green and Paddy Pimblett getting ready to go at it. So again, July is looking somewhat promising. Now, in today's news, or over the last several days since the podcast a couple days ago, one story is interesting. You got Peyton Talbot saying he was denied re-entry to UFC 303 after 19-second KO win. They wouldn't let me back in, he says. And, you combine this with UFC officials pulling guys down off the octagon fence after the fight, and you're starting to just see more UFC officials, and it's starting to get more mainstream, and I'm really worried about this. So every time I see something that goes along these lines, I always report on it because, something is wrong here. Something is wrong here. It's going in the wrong direction. And I'm sure this will get back to Dana White at some point because multiple fighters are saying the same thing. Also, Nate Diaz excited for brother Nick Diaz's UFC return versus Vicente Luque, saying, I don't think there's anybody better than my big brother. What would you expect him to say? He's going to be fighting in Abu Dhabi, going across the world to fight Vicente Luque, and that's going to be interesting. And then big in the headlines since the UFC 305 press conference, Israel Adesanya is irked or upset by Du Plessis discrediting of him as African champ. Du Plessis saying he's just stating facts. And it's interesting. You had the 3 African kings at one point in time, all as champions. Then you got Du Plessis coming along and saying, hey, I'll be the first true African champ. Now, Israel Adesanya's from Nigeria, so he's African. I mean, it's hard to say that he isn't. But we'll circle back to that. So those two going back and forth during the face-off, getting in each other's face. Of course, Adesanya always talking, saying, don't go kissing me now, according to Dricus Du Plessis. So we'll talk about those 2 topics on each of those here in a minute, because that UFC 305 is coming in August. That's around the corner. And more UFC drama with Khabib Nurmagomedov's gym. Allegedly being shut down over potential tax problems in Russia. And now word is on the street that Khabib has left to go to the UAE. I don't know how true all this stuff is. This is what's being reported by multiple news outlets. But I say allegedly because we really, we got to really hear from Khabib about what's actually happening here. We don't have much from him. Also, Juliana Pena, former champ, talked being most hated in division, waiting for contract to face Rockwell Pennington for the title. So let's just begin right here. Juliana Pena deserves a title shot. Is she the most hated fighter in the women's bantamweight division? I don't know, right? Ronda Rousey's gone, obviously. Amanda Nunes is gone. This seems to be the future now. I don't know how long Rockwell Pennington will be the champ, but right now she's been the champ for a little bit, and until she faces someone, she remains the champ. Juliana Pena, who's been out for some time, certainly deserves the title shot in this division, and it's just a matter of time before she gets it. I just don't know that I agree with her being the most hated in the division, right? When you compare to Amanda Nunes, which is like a crowd and fan favorite, yes, but now she's gone, and you got a whole new landscape of fighters, and I don't think the UFC fans, including myself, have really figured out in the women's bantamweight division who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, if you will. And I think Pena just feels that way because of fighting Amanda Nunes, and that whole back and forth. But with Nunes gone, the fans are going to kind of regather their thoughts and figure out, okay, who do we like here? And whoever we like, whoever faces them, we don't like. And you'll start to see fans shift more in one direction. And we really don't know yet. So I think she's getting ahead of herself and saying that after fighting Nunes and feeling that way. But now I think it'll change as time goes on. In fact, people just want to see a good fight. You're not the champ right now. You're not being hunted, you're the hunter. And fans tend to like the hunter. They want to hear and new, unless it's just a really good fighter, a favorite fighter like an Islam Makhachev or something like that. So, I think she'll see it'll be different next time out. She might have people rooting for her, including myself. Now, there's a lot of discussion as far as Khabib. Allegedly, his bank accounts have been frozen, his gym was raided, and he fled to the UAE and is trying to change his citizenship. This is what people are saying, okay? I don't see any facts to support this just yet. Of course, I'm sure these outlets have the facts. That's why they're reporting it. So it makes it interesting to see all this going on. But the bigger story is that Conor McGregor reacts. And he says, broken on the run. If you see him, tell him push-ups for cash. Now the push-ups for cash is a reference back to 2018 when Khabib and his cousin were accused of paying a homeless person to do push-ups for cash, right? So McGregor's throwing this back in his face now that the tables have turned against him, allegedly. So you got this whole thing going on. This blew up about a day or two ago, and continues to be talked about in MMA circles. And I really just hope for Khabib's sake it's not true, right? But McGregor will love to pump that fight back up at all costs. So if Khabib's name comes in the news, he's jumping all over it. And I don't even think it's because he doesn't like Khabib anymore. I just think he knows that if Khabib comes back, he's got to fight McGregor. Like, number one, it would be over money. It's not going to be because he wants to. I don't think that will ever happen. But McGregor's always going to keep an eye on that. Make no mistake about it. Now, before we get to our two bigger stories today, Nate Diaz excited for brother Nick Diaz's UFC return. He said Luke's a fighter. He'll come to fight. And you guys know Nick. So that's what that is. You're going to have a couple of animals in there. I don't think there's anybody better than Nick. So we'll see what happens. And I don't disagree with Nate Diaz at all. Right? I don't disagree with Nate Diaz one bit. I mean, the bottom line is that's his brother. They're both, he's a big time fighter in terms of getting, like a back and forth that's going to go for a while. He can take a punch. He can deliver a punch. We haven't seen him in some time. But with that being said, it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. Vicente Luque has struggled a little bit as of late. So this is a perfect opportunity, perfect fight for him to come in and potentially do well. So that's what Nate Diaz is saying about his brother, and why would you go against him?
Finish him, Nate!
Finish him, Nate is always right?
Finish him, Nate!
It's like he has a fight won against Edwards and doesn't finish it. Or the whole landscape of the welterweight division would change. Would be way different than it is right now.
Finish him, Nate!
Forget Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. Nate Diaz could still be in the discussion.
Finish him, Nate!
But instead he went to boxing. But his brother's back, and you never know. I mean, guys, they come back and they win a few. You never know. I don't think it's over. I definitely don't think it's over for Nick and Nate Diaz, at least right now.
Oh, a big right hand!
Now, if you listened to the podcast before, you might say, well, that's not what you said before, and you would be misinterpreting what I'm saying. They're just not active. They're getting older every day. The time is now, and they're going for the money, right? Boxing and all this other stuff. So, you know, the time is now. If they're going to ever make a comeback and take it seriously, the time will be right now. But a lot of these guys, including McGregor, are looking for the prize fights right now more than title fights, which is weird because McGregor's got the money. He should be focusing on a weight class and trying to win the belt. Because even if he's close and wins one or two, the UFC might just throw him in there. Now, let's get away from that. Let's get to the two better stories of the day. And one of them is Peyton Talbot more or less saying, you know, I won my fight in 15 seconds, 21 seconds, excuse me, this past weekend at UFC 303. One of the biggest finishes of the night, certainly the fastest finish. None of the other ones were even close. 21 seconds is ridiculous. And then he says, but then I was kicked out of T-Mobile Arena.
Whoa!
I mean, what's happening here, man? And I promise you, if they ask Dana White, even if he knows about this, he's going to do something about it. He's probably got so much going on that he doesn't know Peyton Talbot's outside, not being allowed back in. But guess what? It's negative publicity for the sport. You know, this is when you put too many officials in places and allowing human beings to make decisions. So he wins the fight, and then he's like, you know, you're basically like, so what he's saying, more or less, and I'll read you his quote in a moment when he was on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, but he's basically alluding to the fact that you go in there and fight, right? Then it's sort of like, not necessarily a rush, but they're trying to get you from the octagon out the door, right? Johnny Walker famously walking out without shoes. Other fighters have alluded to these things, and it's just not a good look. There's too many human beings, UFC officials, that are being paid to be there, and they feel like they got to do something. They got to pull a guy off the fence. I can't let a guy in without a ticket, okay? Even though this is an actual fighter that's on the card. If that's the case, and there's only, at max, if there's 15 fights, you got 30 fighters, and really just 28, because the final two, after that, it's over. And really, the co-main event's not coming back, because they're going back to chill for a minute, right? So you're looking at most 24 fighters. Give those guys some seats. Save those guys somewhere. I understand it's about making money, but this is bad publicity, man. Peyton Talbot telling Ariel Helwani, they kick you out, he said, of security. They were like, do you have a ticket? I was like, I just fought. They're like, no exceptions, man. Are you joking? Is this is this a joke? He also goes on to say there's no more VIP rooms since COVID. So then they got to do something. There's got to be something else. Like COVID's for, you know, we're supposed to be getting past COVID, and at least in terms of the UFC for sure. They've been trying to work past this thing since day one. And now you're telling me 4 years later they're still following a weird rule that says there's no VIP room for the fighters that just fought? Like, it's just crazy. You know, that's a serious problem, man. And it just goes back to too many officials. Let's not make this a no-fun league. That's why we watch. These are fighters. We want to see some crazy stuff happen. But when this silly stuff happens behind the scene, it makes it even worse. Because it's like, man, we got to fix this stuff. Let these guys watch the fight, man. And if you want to go so far to give them a ticket, give them a free ticket, man. Come on, man. Even when I play football at all levels, you get so many tickets for your, you know, you get 6 tickets, 10 tickets, whatever, for your family and friends, even at the lowest levels. You're telling me a UFC fighter can't get a ticket to the event? Something's wrong there. And it's not a good look for the UFC for one of their up-and-coming fighters to say that. Certainly not. especially with all the UFC fighter pay and stuff. Like, you got to make it appear that you're treating these guys pretty darn well. If you got issues with the fighter pay, which I disagree with any issue with fighter pay. I think the UFC is a company and doing what they're supposed to do, and it's a contract. But you can't let these mishaps happen. It just can't happen. Now, Israel Adesanya is upset with Dricus Du Plessis. What do you know? Two guys are upset with each other before they fight, right? Timeless. Will continue forever. But he's upset with him for discrediting him as being an African champ. Du Plessis saying, I'm just stating facts, right? He believes he'll be the first African champion because he lives in Africa, trains in Africa, right? And it's a little bit different for Adesanya. So, you know, he was born there, then moved when he was young. And Du Plessis is holding that against him. Then during the press conference, are like face to face, obviously not happy, ready to go. Adesanya says, don't go kissing me now. So you got all this stuff going on. Du Plessis saying, I think he said, don't kiss me. He told Submission Radio. As far as I know, he said, don't go kissing me now. I'm no dog, so I won't. I don't know what he was saying. I wasn't really focused on what he was saying. I didn't say anything, you know? I'm not here to say anything to him. The date is set. There's no need to be saying anything. And yeah, I mean, this is what's crazy about this fight. This is a lot like when I played football. You know, I like to talk a little smack. I like to have some fun during the game when I played. And I like it when the other guy talks a little smack during the game. But you always have these crazy ones, and usually the crazy ones end up being really good, that don't even like to talk to anybody during the game, before the game, any of that. And those are the ones you got to watch out for. And Du Plessis says he's not a dog, but he is that dog. He's that dog that even though he's being hunted, he's still on the hunt. And he's letting Adesanya know, like, more or less, I don't care what it used to be. You think you're the first African champ? I'm going to be the first African champ. He's got Adesanya all upset and mad and all that. Will that work to his advantage? We'll see. I still think this is going to be a heck of a fight. And it's very tough to say who I'll be rooting for. I know we made the prediction, but I got these guys very close on the dude list, man. Because I'm kind of just waiting to see what happens. I'm a big fan of Adesanya, top 4, top 5 of all time in my book as far as favorite fighters. And I always get nervous when he fights. So I'm looking forward to seeing how I'm going to feel as he walks to the octagon. Because I might just flip and just be like, let's go Adesanya at all costs. I don't even remember who we made the prediction on. I have to go back and look because it's that close. I probably picked Du Plessis, but I'm not so sure. Adesanya is tough in rematches, so it's going to be interesting, and there's going to be a lot of trash talking here, and this fight is going to get more and more pumped up as we get close to it. So please believe it. I mean, please believe it. This fight is going to get more amped up as we get close to it. What could be better than the middleweight division on the line? And does either Adesanya reclaims glory, right?
And new.
Or Du Plessis kind of ends the career of Adesanya, at least in the middleweight division. Adesanya still has a claim to light heavyweight as long as Alex Pereira is the champ, right? Because people just want to see that fight again, especially with Adesanya beating him in their last fight, even though it was middleweight, right? People were going to want to see that fight again. And as long as Alex Pereira wins, even if Adesanya loses this fight, he can go up to light heavy. There's still avenues for him. But I think Du Plessis is in a position to end the career in the middleweight division, end the reign for Adesanya. And I say that because if Adesanya does win, the reign is clearly not over. There's some missteps along the way, but he still reclaims the belt. And then we're going to start still seeing that merry-go-round of fighters have the belt. Sean Strickland, Dricus, Du Plessis, Adesanya. Hamza is still coming, right? Eventually someone will secure the belt and have it for a few years. I truly believe that. But when the belt is in motion like this, it means the division is really strong. And there's no true bona fide top dog, leader, champion in that division. And I love that. Because when one guy takes it over, everyone else is just fighting for scraps. You know? Everyone else is just fighting for scraps. But not in this division. Everybody's fighting for the belt because anybody can win it on any given day, and that's why the middleweight division continues to rise, right? This is why the middleweight division continues to be a very good division to watch going forward. So that's what's happening in the UFC, right? We got the weekend off this weekend, so it's not like we're doing any fight predictions for this weekend or we're getting ready to do the watch party this weekend. None of that, so we're probably going to be away for a few days, enjoying the 4th of July weekend and break. I'm going to be pumping out predictions over the next 3 to 5 days, so keep an eye on those. A lot of them from UFC 304 and 305, and then we'll get into fight night as we approach the weekend, and especially next week because we got Doug Rose coming, and you always know it's going to be big when Doug Rose, Namajunas, is fighting, so stay tuned for that. For now, this is your boy Chris Cross. I hope you have a great day, and God bless. As always, peace.